And good morning. We are live. This is All Falcons with Scott Kennedy and Nick Kendall, and we're here to talk Atlanta Falcons after a win in London, no doubt. And some of the things I want to get into with Nick. And Nick, first off, good morning. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. Congrats on riding that winning high right now. I'm not feeling the same with my Denver Broncos and with my Iowa Hawkeyes though, so I'll take it. Take what I can get. And I know you're definitely riding the high. I can see it. You're wearing it. The Atlanta Braves. So yeah, there you go. Congratulations to you guys. Out of the teams that are left, the Braves are easily the team I'm pulling for. I don't know how they'll match up in the NLCS, but either way, I mean, baseball, anything can happen.
Yeah, I don't feel it with the Atlanta Falcons like I did when I was, in my 20s and younger, after working in football for so long. But I still a pretty big Braves fan.
Yeah.
And I felt like this would be a good time to wear it today because that might be the last win they get for the year. No, they handled the Giants okay. They can't beat the Dodgers, though. I don't think they can beat the Giants in 7 games. They don't have enough bullpen, but that's a discussion for another day. But what I wanted to talk about here is we're 5 games into the season. Atlanta Falcons are 2-3. They're coming off of a nice win in London against the hapless New York Jets. And I kind of wanted to get into grading Arthur Smith and the Atlanta Falcons based on what we've seen. And we'll reference the last game as part of our grading system, obviously, because, the most recent, one, it's recency bias, and two, you want to see progress through the year, or, where are you at? What have you done for me lately? What does the team look like after 5 games? Is it improving? Is it regressing? Does it look the same? There's signs of improvement. All of those things. So over the next half hour with Nick, I want to get into that a little bit. And I like having Nick here. Nick is an NFL draft analyst, and day to day he also covers the Denver Broncos. And just like I go over to Denver Broncos and give them a little bit of an outside point of view, it's nice to go out to Nick and get an overview, because we're kind of in a bubble here in Atlanta, and sometimes we don't see things the same way. So it's nice having third-party perspective and validation. But real quick, I want to say hello to the chat as it's coming in. This is starting to get to pick up. This is an early start, but Peter's here. Peter is, I don't know what time it is for you, Peter, but it's early. It's late. Well, it's early for us. So Peter's in Cambodia. Todd Man coming in says, "Let's go Braves" on YouTube. Yeah, I'm with you on that one. It'll be nice to be able to set the rotation a little bit, see if Charlie Morton goes again after a quick outing yesterday. Maybe in game 2. So maybe you can go Fried and Morton twice in a 7-game series. Todd Black, good friend, Todd Black. Todd is one of my baseball dads who is new to the baseball team, and we're going to have a lot of fun this year. We got a pretty good. He's got you're going to hear the name Carter Black again before it's all said and done. He's a football player, baseball player, and if I'm around, I'll make sure you hear his name. So we'll have the video camera at all the games when Carter's dropping the hammer on those guys with his curved ball and then going yards. So Todd, appreciate you being here. Like I said, when I saw you on Sunday, I appreciate all the support. And Peter says it's 9 p.m. here. You know what's fun about Peter? We'll see Peter again tonight. So he'll watch this one. He'll go to bed. Then he'll get up and he'll have Broncos for breakfast on his time when we see you again tonight. Dave, good morning, my friend, and I appreciate you chiming in on YouTube. That was the first short I had ever posted, and Dave and Luke and Peter all were right on it. So evidently YouTube and Google are pushing that thing hard because y'all got notifications right away about that. So appreciate you being here. And Luke was saying hello again. And Luke says Sunday was so good. Seeing the team play and get the W in London was great. And we actually played really well, in my opinion. And we'll get into that a little bit. There was some concerns, but to give it away, I agree with you. The Falcons played really well. Chaz Andrews coming in. So the chat's hopping this morning, guys. I certainly appreciate it. It was a breath of fresh air to see Pitts finally go off in London. Hopefully Atlanta can use him more in the offense. He makes a very big difference along with the surprising Cordero Patterson, who has been a blessing for us via wide receiver and running back. The defense is coming along, but we still need consistency from the pass rush to make our defensive backs better. Absolutely. So let's get into that a little bit. I want to, the Falcons went to London It's a long road trip, air trip. One of my favorite cities in the world. It makes you realize how gross New York City is when you go to other big cities and they're not dirty and filthy like London or even, big cities in the US. Chicago doesn't look like that. Anyway, sorry to take a shot at New York, but I usually get one of those in about once every episode I do. But over in London, and they used to say it was kind of like a bowl trip, but not anymore. Now it's straight business, pure business trip. They don't have time to do anything. Falcons took care of business just on the high level. What did you see from that game, Nick?
I saw a efficient team that was obviously much better than the team they were going against. Matt Ryan looked good. He looked efficient running the offense. Looks like he's starting to get his footing in everything he's doing there with Arthur Smith. And man, the Falcons knew that they had a dominant player in Kyle Pitts and said, you know what, we're gonna get this guy involved. And he looked like the number 4 overall pick, which is great. I mean, I know you want the number 4 overall pick, greatest tight end prospect ever since Vernon Davis, at least, to be amazing right away. But tight ends historically take 2 years, 3 years in the NFL before they really get their footing. Now, Kyle Pitts is a different kind of monster, but still, I mean, he looked like he did at Florida. I mean, reaching for the ball, his first touchdown, plays down the sideline, but big slot movement. So really excited to see him get more involved. I was curious to see what the Falcons do around him to get him more spacing going forward. That's a long-term view. And also, you mentioned it already, huge Cordell Patterson fan. I thought I was going to win my fantasy matchup this week. He's been a blessing. Picked him up off the waiver wire first week this season, but I went up against Lamar Jackson and Mark Andrews combined. So that dream went away quickly.
That's why I don't play, Nick. That's why I don't play fantasy. I don't want to have to be that emotionally involved. I kind of joke. It's like, have you ever seen Nick Saban coach? Does he look happy to you? Ever?
Not really. No, not really.
No. Well, see, that's how I feel playing fantasy football. I'm good at it, but I don't make $8 million a year. So It's not worth the misery and the obsession of doing fantasy football for me. The last time I did it, I joined a league. I took a last place. It was actually a league I started in the 90s, running box scores out of the paper. Yeah. When I moved back to Georgia, I joined back the league. I took over a last place team, won the league, won $1,000, and mic drop. I was out. I'm like, I just don't enjoy this because of stuff like that.
Yeah, it was really frustrating. But sometimes that happens. We've all been on the other end. And I see we have a comment here from Dave saying, can we stop calling Pitts a tight end?
That's the one I was going to hit on. That's the one I was going to hit on. When Dave says, when can we stop calling Pitts a tight end? Dave, I don't know how long you followed my stuff, but I have referred to him as, he looks like Plaxico Burress. That's who he reminds me of the most when I see him out on the field. Plaxico is Michigan State, huge wide receiver for the New York Giants, very good. But, they in this game with no wide receivers left, with Calvin Ridley out and Russell Gage still out, they lined him up in the slot a lot. And they lined him out wide sometimes. So he actually spent more time. And Nick, to your question, how can they get him more involved? They didn't line him up at tight end, but like 25% of the snaps. Yeah. They lined him up as a receiver. And he's not there to block defensive ends. He's there to make catches. And with those guys out, it was going to be a Kyle Pitts day if it was going to be a successful day. And guess what? It was a successful day.
Yeah, and shout out to Lee Smith, too. He had a couple big plays. He's been a pretty good inline player for you guys. And the opposite of a shout out to Hayden Hurst with that costly fumble. The Falcons had a couple of turnovers where they were about to score points and it zapped them. So 27-20, right, like we saw, but definitely not as close as the score indicated. And a lot of these key metrics, I mean, the Falcons just lapped the Jets, way better on third down efficiency, 9 for 14, total plays 75 to 52, yards 450 to 230, yards per play, always a great indicator of who's winning that game, unless you're watching the Iowa Hawkeyes. But 6 to 4.4, I mean, eclipsed 100 yards. The only things that's a little bit upsetting is you had less penalties, but for more yards. That big pass interference obviously was a big one that pretty much gave the Jets a touchdown.
And AJ Terrell, and I kind of forgot about that. And I was thinking of some of the big mistakes that kept the Jets in the game, because otherwise the game was a dominating performance by the Atlanta Falcons, except for trying to Falcon it up.
Turnovers, man.
With a couple of turnovers, clean those up. And my best friend, lifelong Atlanta sports fan, you're not going to find many people more cynical than Atlanta sports fans. And college doesn't count because the system isn't set up to try and artificially level the playing field. There's haves and have-nots. And in NFL, everybody's supposed to get a help from the league, even if their owner or their team or whatever isn't worthy of it. that's another conversation as well. The Marxist system that is the NFL. But you're not going to find people more cynical than Atlanta sports fans. And he asked me as the Jets pulled within 20-17, he says, what are the chances we still win this? And I said, right now, 60-40. I said, I feel good about this. One, because it's the Jets. If it was another alpha franchise, Packers, Patriots, any of those big name teams that the Falcons were playing, I said, then it's 10%. Then we lose this one. But I liked our chances against those. And Luke, I'm glad you were there too. I was thoroughly impressed. I wasn't expecting a relegation scrap battle between the Atlanta Falcons and the New York Jets to draw a full Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I was incredibly impressed. So good on you for that. Real quick, now we've got some people in here. I didn't want to shoot this one early. We'll get back to the Jets as well, the Jets game as well, and some of the positives and negatives. But after the game, so 2 weeks ago against Washington, Falcons have a 30-22 lead. They've got the ball and a chance to really grind it out and really put that game away. Instead, they run 3 and out. Washington goes and scores. They miss the 2-point conversion. So it's 30-28. Falcons go 5 and out. So I think they had ran a play, first down, and then 3 and out. So they ran 8 plays with 12 minutes in the fourth quarter before they were behind again. And Arthur Smith was criticized fairly heavily for where's Cordell Patterson, fairly heavily for the really nice Atlanta sports media. This ain't New York, folks. They're almost like, sorry we have to ask this, but where was Cordell Patterson and were you too conservative? And we've talked about one of my phrases that I absolutely hate is trust the coaches. I just hate that phrase. And I'll flip that around and say, I trust coaches to try and do what they think is right. I don't trust them to always be right because they're not going to be. They're going to make mistakes. So after the criticism for the week of Washington, we do a little self-scouting, and Arthur Smith criticizes himself. And this is what he said after the Jets game.
And so, you learn. I was pissed at myself from last week. And, the worst thing, I'll make plenty of mistakes, but try not to make the same mistake twice.
Okay. I was pissed at myself for being conservative last week against Washington. So let's fast forward to the New York game. And we talk about 6 minutes left. The Jets have closed the game 20-17 after a 20-3 lead. Falcons fans are going, here we go again. First play.
Ryan going to go deep, down the middle. And the catch is made inside the 40-yard line by Kyle Pitts.
And, the worst thing, I'll make plenty of mistakes, but try not to make the same mistake twice.
Nick, what do you think about those comments?
Coaches say a lot of things. I don't put that much weight on it. I'm glad that he kind of growing from it, but I don't know, just getting your best player involved, right? Like that's the biggest takeaway here. Kyle Pitts and making big plays. And, I'm very skeptical of anything a coach says, having listened to Vance Joseph for a few years and Vic Fangio and Rick Scangarello, that press conferences are nice. They give you little tidbits here and there, but how much weight do I actually put versus, the actual coach speak? Not little, but it's nice when things line up.
Well, for me, I'm a little more positive on that one. I absolutely loved what he had to say after the game. He shows humility. He shows the willingness to change, the willingness to make a mistake, which goes with humility. And then he addressed it and went and got your best player in the game the ball. So all of that, I think, is just fantastic. And for me, Nick, it was a little bit of the opposite of coach speak. It was you're not going to get honesty out of coaches most of the time.
No.
I've said before, coaches lie so much they don't call it lying. They call it coach speak. Oh yeah, we're in for a real battle against Northwest Minnesota, Texas A&M. And then you go and beat them 70-0. No, you're not. Stop lying to me. I'm not stupid. Just say we're hoping not to get anybody hurt on either side of the ball. We're going to pay them their money, collect our check for 80,000 of the fans, have a good time, drive safe.
Good scrimmage.
But he basically said, I was pissed. I went back and I self-scouted, I self-evaluated, and I didn't like how I called that game against Washington. Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. So what are you going to do about it, Coach? You know what? In the same situation, we're going deep. We're gonna take a shot. And I thought that was just fantastic. I thought it was fantastic. So I was thoroughly pleased with Arthur. And to that point, I've been really pleased. Grading Arthur Smith. That's the name. That's the title of this show. I think Arthur Smith has done a fantastic job with the Atlanta Falcons to this point. And a lot of it has to do with your level of expectations coming in. Mine were really low. They usually are. I'm a cynic. And I think he's outperformed, or at least performed up to the best of expectations I could have had.
I agree with you. It does help to have a competent quarterback for sure. He's not going to a team that's, boat out in the water with no oars with a terrible quarterback. So Matt Ryan, I thought, has looked competent now. Is he the most ideal fit for the offense based on what we saw with Ryan Tannehill there, the legs? No, but a lot of people said that about Matt Ryan with Kyle Shanahan. If you have a good quarterback who's intelligent and protects the football, even if his arm is starting to maybe lose a little bit of RPMs on the velocity, that's fine. So he looked really good, and I've been impressed with the offense. The defense, obviously, still needs work. I mean, it's not, and I don't really blame Arthur Smith, the defensive coordinator, for that. It is a defense that needs an injection of talent on all three levels. Unless you play the Jets every week, then you should be okay. But overall, I think the offense is trending in a great direction. I think the offensive line has played better this week. Again, Jets, not Jets, I don't know. Chris Lindstrom, though, I mean, first-round pick for a guard. You don't love that investment of resources, but he's been great. And Kyle Pitt's starting to come to his own. So I think Arthur Smith's got a good thing going there with the offense for as long as he can ride the Matt Ryan train. Now, when does that train pull into the station? I don't know. That's the big question. But as for right now, looks good. I am impressed with Arthur Smith. I'm maybe even a little bit envious, given what we're going on with the Broncos offense.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons that the third-party validation that I talk about is, just listening, because I'm following the Broncos every day too, and just listening to Vic Fangio and his press conferences, it's cringe. Some of the stuff he's saying is just like, dude, it's okay to say that things, be honest every so often. It's okay. And Dave, I agree with you here. And Dave has back-to-back comments on this. So people believe that D is the most important player on the D line. I disagree. I would take a really good D tackle over a pass rusher. Let's get into this. Let's get into this a little bit, Nick. Falcons defensive line right now. Believe it or not, and maybe it's after 5 games, so there's a decent enough sample size. The Falcons are, I wrote it down, 12th on team defense right now. They're up to 12th in the league on team defense right now, despite not a lot of talent. And if you look at if you put any stock in the PFF, the Pro Football Focus grades, it's pretty bleak. The 2 highest graded guys are actually a reserve safety and a journeyman safety who didn't play much last week, which might be how he didn't fall any farther.
Yeah.
But let's talk about. I want to hit. Let me bring that back up. Let's bring Dave's comment back up. Let's talk. Hit on that. Address that comment for me, please.
Well, pass rush is the name of the game. I mean, you follow the money. That's where the value is. Player positions that get paid the most, quarterback, obviously, but then it's offensive tackle, wide receiver, and cornerback, and pass rusher, edge rusher. So I do think that the defensive end is the most important position. And that being said, there are levels of nuance here. I mean, you look at any defensive metric or scores, Aaron Donald breaks the scale, right? Like, he's his own thing. I don't know if you can put Aaron Donald in the category of defensive tackle, just like people were arguing you can't put Kyle Pitts at tight end, right? It's a different beast. So if you want to say Aaron Donald is better than any edge rusher, okay. But other than that, I would disagree. I would take the edge rusher as far as value. That being said, I think a bad defensive end is not going to kill you as much as a bad defensive tackle. That can totally sink your entire defensive front. If they are constantly blowing up your nose guard or nose tackle, 3 yards beyond the line of scrimmage, and that nose guard doesn't have to take on double teams because they don't respect them enough, that can absolutely kill your entire defense more than a lackadaisical edge rusher. So nuance here, but I would say, like, an impact player, typically that's going to be your edge rusher. That's the guy who is one-on-one a lot of times. They have more space, and they're the ones getting after the quarterback at a higher rate. So more valuable, but a bad defensive tackle can kill you more.
Yep. And because if you can't stop the run, then you're not going to be rushing the passer much. And if you're getting beat up the gut, if I can run the ball up the middle, that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to keep running the ball at the middle until you can stop me. But Dave, I want to address this one too as it relates to the Falcons, because the Falcons are running a 3-4. So they're basically running a nose guard and 2 jumbo defensive ends. But I agree with you on this. The problem is we're not running defensive tackles in Atlanta. We're running a nose guard who's supposed to be an anchor. He's supposed to basically just eat up a guard in center and stop a double team. And then you've got 2 big defensive linemen who are quasi tackles, but not really. They're a little farther out than a true defensive tackle. So I love Grady Jarrett in a 4-3. Love him, because that is your pass rushing defensive tackle. In this scheme, he's an end. He's an end. So when you see him getting his pressure, it's usually in a pass rush situation where they've shifted over just a little bit and he's lining up more as his true defensive tackle position than as an end. What the Falcons need are those outside linebackers, those big that we would normally call a defensive end. And right now, Dante Fowler and Steven Means aren't getting it done.
No,
and that's where, that's where the problem, I believe, with the pass rush is you don't have enough pressure coming off the edge, and then you're undersized in the middle. Luckily, you got 2 super fast inside linebackers, Foye Oluokun and Deion Jones, that are cleaning up everything right now. And it's a bend but don't break type of defense, because they don't have the personnel in the front to run that defense, so to speak, in a 3-4. Because I firmly believe that Grady Jarrett's best position is inside as a defensive tackle, and when he lines up there in pass rushing situations is when we see him start to show out. Appreciate the comment, Dave. A new name in here that came in, Camillo, says, hopefully Kyle Pitts can build off momentum and we get something going on offense with him and Ridley, hoping for a winning season. It's interesting. This team should be 3-2.
Yeah.
This team should have should be winning right now. And then you're going to Miami after a bye week. And instead of, you got a pretty good chance. They should be 2-4. They should beat Jacksonville this week, but they could possibly be 1-5. That looks like a very winnable game on the road as well. You're evening your record at 3-3. You could have been 4-2, but now 500 isn't necessarily completely out of the question now that the offensive line is starting to look serviceable. Nick, what do you think?
It's definitely possible, and I think that with the 7 playoff spots, obviously I wouldn't say the NFC West or NFC South is up for grabs with Tampa Bay, probably one of the more loaded rosters. But I mean, the Panthers look extremely vulnerable. Started off hot, and they've lost 2 in a row now, I believe. And Sam Darnold looks, not
like Sam Darnold.
He looks a little better than New York Jets Sam Darnold, but he's not playing great. I mean, losing Christian McCaffrey.
But if you look at Sam Darnold's quarterback rating for the first 5 games, it's linear, straight down. Actually, not straight down, because it goes down on a nice straight curve, and then it's exponential. So if you run a progress line through here, it's going to be a reverse exponential curve because of his 3 interception game. So his quarterback rating has gotten worse every single game.
Yeah, we call that logarithmic decay, right? That's for you math nerds out there. Hopefully,
I was told there'd be no math.
Yeah, God, sorry guys. Statistics in the back of this head. But the other team, also the Saints, have not looked amazing, right? They've looked fine, but not amazing. So this is the team that definitely can go some places. I'm a little envious. I'm very afraid being in the AFC West, given what we're seeing from Justin Herbert right now and Patrick Mahomes. So I think the NFC South, I mean, Tom Brady, his star is shining right now, but the NFC South is up for grabs after this. And I like the direction of this offense with Arthur Smith. And I love the multiple tight end usage. I know, don't call Kyle Pitts a tight end, whatever. I mean, he's a mismatch weapon. I don't care what you call him. Get him the ball. And also shout out, I mean, watching, again, everything I'm relating back to the Broncos, you're kind of like with you on our show with the Falcons, but the ingenuity of getting these guys isolated and weapons in space with these positionless football players on offense. And it's not just Kyle Pitts, it's Cordero Patterson as well. I mean, he had a pass catch in the red zone where he was doing some pre-snap motion and caught one over the middle that historically he'd drop, right? Like Cordell Patterson's always been kind of a guy without a home, but now he's this running back that can flex out and do some things with Kyle Pitts. I mean, that offensive line starts to gel, and maybe you get somebody who's a little bit more of an explosive down the field threat to create some space as far as like speed. With Calvin Ridley being the more shifty guy, I mean, you're cooking with gas. So this offense could be really fun. Offensive line has to be more stabilized. Obviously, I don't trust them yet. Probably a couple more rotations in there, but I'm a little envious. I think this is a good spot, and Matt Ryan's playing pretty good ball also.
Yeah, and Matt Ryan's 36, I believe. I don't think he turned 37 yet. I think he turned 36 this year. Either way, you wonder the do you go get a quarterback now really depended on in the last draft, really depended on how long do you think that Matt Ryan can play? Do you think you can get 5 years out of him? If he can play till 36 to 41 or 36 to 40 is actually 5 years. Mm-hmm. Then okay. But protect him, make sure you're not, because he's gotten the snot beat out of him the last several years with that offensive line. Falcons made a couple of moves yesterday, and on the surface, it doesn't look like much because they moved tight end Parker Hess to the practice squad, and they cut 2 guys off the practice squad. But what that does, it means there's an open spot on the active roster, and it means there's an open spot on the practice squad. Now, I think that probably means that Josh Andrews, the offensive lineman who was slated to be the starting left guard for Jalen Mayfield, is about to hit the active roster. We'll see if that comes true or not. But the offensive line, what kind of progression have you seen watching it from the outside in over the course of the first 5 weeks of the season?
Well, Lindstrom is sometimes you see some guys that are so bad that they have a gravitational pull and it sinks the unit. I think that Lindstrom has had the opposite effect. I think he's been a galvanizing, stable force for them, and that's in both pass protection and run protection. I've been very impressed with Lindstrom. Also, shout out to you. Speaking of guards, went back and was keeping my eyes on the left guard position. Elijah Vera Tucker for the Jets. I mean, he was that Jets first touchdown drive. He made big block. I mean, he looks a little bit like a little beetle out there because he's stubby and small. But man, that dude can block. So
well, to be fair, so I can be self-deprecating too. Is I had said a couple of weeks ago when I watched him, I think that's what they were hoping from Chris Lindstrom when they drafted him. 3rd year now.
Yeah,
Chris Lindstrom's playing at that level. Elijah Vera Tucker, I think, is just ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
But I saw an article yesterday that Lindstrom's playing at a Pro Bowl level right now on a unit that overall isn't very good, and that's really, really impressive. So happy to be wrong on whenever you talk, unless the player's just a turd. Whenever you talk down about a player, you're not happy about it. You don't necessarily want to be right. I'm like, this guy isn't very good. When they play above where you think you are, you're happy for them. These are human beings too.
Yeah, I think that further to that point, Jake Matthews is fine. He's busy. What was he, the 6th overall pick level left tackle you'd want in any draft? Probably not, but he's fine at left tackle. There's far worse in the league. If there's any positions where I'm thinking this unit could use some upgrades, I know Caleb McGarry is a 1st-round pick, but he's been inconsistent enough where if you have an obvious chance to upgrade that position, I think you shoot. I don't care, left tackle, right tackle, blind side or not. You need 2 good tackles. And I thought Hennessy's been good enough. He's been serviceable where he's a position where I'm fine rolling with him. I don't know if he's ideal for the scheme sometimes. I thought he would be a great outside zone guy, more of a finesse movement player. But overall, I think they've been getting better besides Jalen Mayfield, who obviously should not have played week 1, let alone maybe even this year. But he's not killing them like he was early on. And
he's not. I said they were almost slingshotting guys into the backfield against Philadelphia. It was a push-pull, except it was all pull. They're just pulling the guys right by him.
Yeah. Shout out to Javon Hargrave, though. I mean, man, he's probably one of the more underrated interior defensive linemen, and he gave them all they could handle. And also, pivot real quick. Parker Hesse. I'm not going to let you get an Iowa Hawkeye name wrong. How dare you?
Thank you.
That's okay. No, that's totally fine. Iowa has some players in the NFL that have done well at Iowa and then have switched positions. So you have Parker Hesse, who was an edge rusher, now a tight end fullback, and Matt Nelson is a starting offensive tackle who played defensive tackle at Iowa for the Lions. So crazy.
Parker's been yo-yoed in and out of several rosters over the past 6 months. So we might see him on the active roster again before too long. But I know we're coming up on 7:30 your time, and you've got to call it a day. I'm going to hang out for a few minutes and hit some of the questions in the chat before we get out of here. Any final comments as we head into the bye week?
It's like what I said when the Broncos started off 3-0. Some people will say, oh, well, you only played the Jets. You play who's in front of you. And every single team, not every team, but most teams are going to get games against teams like the Jets. So you took care of business mostly. You got to clean up some things. Those fumbles when you were driving were bad. And that's like the Broncos versus the Giants. They had 2 plays like that.
It's like they're out of character. That's just fluky. I mean, it's like I said, it's falcony.
Yep.
It's hard to really truly describe. I'm a huge English Premier League fan, so there aren't that many people that know a lot about both. But the ironic thing to me, it's hard for me to explain just how funny this actually is. But playing in Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, the Spurs, Tottenham Hotspur, are so renowned for blowing leads that they call it Spursy. They actually have their own nickname. They're like, if someone blows a big lead, they call it Spursy. And it's like, and the Falcons are going and playing in the Spursy Stadium. How ironic is that? A team that is maybe the most renowned in American sports for blowing leads is going and playing in Spurs Stadium. But they held on. There were some falcony things going on in that game, but luckily they were playing the Jets.
Yeah, I agree with you. And also, always been a big fan of Matt Ryan. So happy to see this team trending in a good direction for him, because I feel like he has been consistently underrated and also a good guy to cheer for. So anytime Matt Ryan can succeed, I'm happy about it. He's a good quarterback, and glad to see he's in an offense that's doing some 21st century stuff with positionless football. Big proponent of positionless football when it comes to offense and defense. Rule over at Carolina's talks about it a lot as well, from college to the NFL, and Falcons are embracing that also. So welcome to the 21st century, I guess. It must be nice with your play calling. So appreciate it and enjoy it, and good luck next week. Who the Falcons playing again next week? You said
Dolphins.
Dolphins. So
yep, bye a week and then Dolphins. Got a pretty good chance to even the record at 3-3, and then you got buy-in from your team and some momentum, and things are going well. But you get out of here, and I've got and if you're in the chat, stick around. There's several comments here I want to touch on before we get out of here. But Nick, I appreciate you being here, and I will see you again. If you're interested in hearing us talk football, Nick and I will be on Broncos for Breakfast on the Mile High Huddle channel at 9:30 a.m. Eastern, 7:30 Mountain, and 6:30 Pacific tomorrow morning.
Bright and early. Always got to get that coffee. So appreciate you guys. Have a good one, and go Braves.
All right. Thanks, Nick. All right, ladies and gentlemen, there's a couple of stuff in the chat here that I wanted to hit on real quick. Let's go back to the defensive ends and how that could change the offense. And Dave says it was painful watching the Falcons against the Jets. Too much hand fighting. Again, I want to throw my perspective on this. Well, that's why we're here, right? I think this has as much to do why you didn't see many blitzes. You saw a containment. This had as much to do with playing Zack Wilson. Zack Wilson, and I said it on a different podcast earlier this week, 31 quarterbacks in the NFL, if you give them too much time, they're going to kill you. It's the opposite with Wilson. You want him sitting back there. Now, obviously, if you can rush forward, collapse pocket, and put him down, that's great. But you're okay. You're okay with him sitting back there and making decisions, because so far in his rookie season, he has shown that he does not make the right decision. But when he becomes absolutely deadly is if he breaks containment and freelances, because he makes throws that 31 other quarterbacks in the NFL probably can't make. And you've got guys that start cheating in, and then he throws over the top of them. Or you lose containment on the complete other side of the field, and he goes across field, John Elway style, or Brett Favre style. He's got that kind of arm. So in that sense, I was okay with leaving Zack Wilson in the pocket. That's where you want him, because he's not making the best decisions right now. Luke MC, I think a top-class defensive end would massively improve the Atlanta Falcons defense. I do too. I can't fault the effort, because Thomas Dimitroff went out and spent big money on who they thought was going to be a top-class defensive end in Dante Fowler. It just hasn't worked out. It hasn't worked out very well. So they went after that guy. They spent big money to try and fix that position, and it hasn't worked out. They've spent money on Tack McKinley. They spent, Vic Beasley. So they put forth the effort there. They just haven't hit. So what is up with your scouting department? And make sure that you are spending money on the right guy. And frankly, I feel the same way about the offensive line. If you've got the resources, and that's what's nice about being a Falcons supporter these days, is that Arthur Blank will put forth the resources, free agent money, signing bonuses to go out and get the right guys, obviously, because Thomas Dimitroff spent all that money and put us in cap hell. But they will make the effort, and they have the resources. Now it's about identification, evaluation, and development. 3 things that I think have lacked for the Falcons in the Thomas Dimitroff regime. Where do the Falcons find that guy? They're not easy to find, and they're really expensive, but there are some edge rushers available in the draft this year. Trying to get an edge rusher in free agency can be tough. I don't think Dante Fowler will be back, and I'm positive he's not going to be back under $7 million. He already took a pay cut, dropped his salary down from about 11. See, I think he was on about a 3-year, $36 million. And it was either you're going to take a pay cut or you're going to be released outright. And he did. He took a pay cut. He's on a 1-year contract. No one has more incentive than him to go out and do well. But right now, it's just not clicking for him. So we'll take a look at some of the edge rushers in the draft as we move along in the season, because I think that's first priority. And frankly, if a Thibodeau from Oregon had been available in this last draft, he would have gone to the Falcons if he didn't get taken in those first 3 picks. The quarterbacks probably still would have gone 1, 2, 3. And then I think that the defensive end probably would have been taken in that spot. But that guy wasn't available. And there wasn't even anybody worth in that position trading down 5 spots for. So that was a tough one. My favorite guy in that class might have been Odafe Owe, who's Jason Owe at the time, out of Penn State. Freak of nature. And he's at Penn State. I didn't say this. He was at Penn State. I don't say this lightly when I said the minute he put his helmet on, he was one of the top 5 athletes in the NFL. The only person I could even think to compare him to, well, Kyle Pitts for one, and he's more athletic than Kyle Pitts, was like LeBron James. We're talking 6'6", 250, running 4.3s with shuttles and L cones that are similar to cornerbacks. Just insane. Camillo, we need to draft a quarterback this year and give him a chance to play behind Matt for some years. And then when Matt retires, he will be our Aaron Rodgers kind of guy. Sounds too good, but it would be nice. I'm okay with that. And if the Falcons are 500 or so, they might take a chance on a guy like Malik Willis. Roswell High School, another local kid playing at Liberty, went to Auburn, transferred out, might not go that high, but he's also super toolsy, which they love, which the general managers love, kind of like Trey Lance. A guy with all those tools, like Zack Wilson, with all those tools, speed, decent size. I think he's about 6'1". He's not huge, but a great arm. But a guy that you would love to be able to sit down and develop a year behind Matt Ryan or 2. Matt Ryan's here at least next year. Nothing will happen with Matt Ryan until June of 2022 because of his contract. It's too prohibitive with the dead cap money. So whether you are pro Matt Ryan or against Matt Ryan, nothing's happening until next season. The way he's playing right now, I'm pretty happy with the way he's playing. There are many more issues to fix before you say that the quarterback is the biggest problem on this team. Let me go back down through here. Donnie, welcome. There's a name I hadn't seen today. So Donnie, welcome in. Falcons need to go after a backup QB for Green Bay. Can't recall the name, but he's starting for them, replace Rodgers. That was Jordan Love. They used a first round, and if he's the guy, they used a first round pick on him a couple years ago. And Aaron Rodgers, they did the same thing with Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre. They drafted a guy in order to replace their aging. And how nice would it be to be the Green Bay Packers and basically have 3 quarterbacks for 40 years? You go from a guy like Bart Starr to Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers. A lot of teams, they'll run 3 different quarterbacks in 3 weeks. And meanwhile, Green Bay we do a quarterback every decade or so, let them win a couple of Super Bowls and move on. Pretty impressive there for sure. Scott, are you happy with the zone defense? It seems like pass catchers are always open. Right now, if I look at the overall numbers, Dave, and say that the Falcons are 12th in total defense, I'm ecstatic because this team lacks talent on defense. You got Grady Jarrett, who's a plus. You got Deion Jones and Foye Oluokun, who are both good, a little undersized, but both good linebackers. You got A.J. Terrell. That's it. When you start taking who would start on other teams, you're done. You're done. You're done with those 4 guys. And even that could be questionable at times, depending on the team. 4 guys on defense that I would consider plus defenders. That's it. So am I happy with the zone defenses? I don't mind a zone defense. I like mixing it up some. I like to see a little more pressure on the quarterback, but right now it's out of necessity. What really can you do with these guys? You got Fabian Moreau at one corner, who was a nickel guy, a cornerback 3 at Washington last year. He's never been a starter. Isaiah Oliver, God bless him, was playing incredibly well at the nickelback position. Now he's gone. AJ Terrell missed some time with a concussion. So a lot of it, Dave, is out of necessity. So am I happy with the results right now? If you would have told me the Falcons come in and Dean Pease was going to take this from a 28th ranked defense to a top 15 defense without spending any money or investing really, and their only real draft pick you put in there was a 2nd round pick in Richie Grant at safety. Yeah, I'll take it. I'm going to bite your arm off for that one. So I'm extremely happy with how the defense is playing overall. The points against isn't great. That's not all on them. They need a serious injection of talent in the defensive backfield and on the defensive line. Moving down just a little bit here. Let me see. Peter says there's not a really decent quarterback to be drafted that high. We'll see. It's early. Things change. When we talk about Spencer Rattler, the number 1 overall in a Heisman Trophy, you know where he's going next year? Probably the transfer portal. So I want to get a year under their belts before we start talking too much about who's who. So it might end up being somebody we're not talking about at all right now that shows. Who was talking about Trey Lance in September of last year? Mac Jones. Who was talking about him as being a 1st round draft pick last year at this time? So we will see. Jay, welcome in. Sorry, we're about to wrap it up here. We're almost done. And unless there's anything else coming back in, we will probably call it a day. So we're at 42 minutes. The chat was super active today, and I appreciate y'all for being here. And there's if you're watching this on demand, I'm going to drop this link in the chat real quick. If you could do me a favor and hit that link for my YouTube channel, because I know we've got a big community on Facebook. I'm 100 followers away from YouTube for monetizing that YouTube channel. And once you are monetized, then we're cooking with gas. We can do a lot more things and really expand this channel and start doing a lot more Falcons draft, et cetera, et cetera. So share that with a friend. Ask them to hit the follow button, even if you mute it and don't get the notifications. It certainly helps me out. Overall, final thoughts. Grading Arthur Smith and the Atlanta Falcons. Yeah, I'm happy with Arthur Smith. I think he's doing a great job. I think the biggest mistake that they made coming in was, we're here to win now. We're here to do this, and don't call it a rebuild. That was all talk. This is a rebuild. Sitting out all of your top players in the preseason, playing the young guys early, and holding out some of the young guys early as we hit the last 12 games of the season. I think we're going to see more Richie Grant now coming in, protecting those guys. Sticking with some of the young guys who you could have thrown to the wolves, and building up a Jalen Mayfield into somebody who could be a serviceable offensive lineman for years to come in Atlanta, even though he was just thrashed in week 1 against Philadelphia Eagles. A lot of coaches may hit the panic button on that. So I'm very happy with Arthur Smith and how he's handling this team. I'm happy with how the team is playing for him. That's something else to keep an eye on. What are the veterans saying? How do the veterans act? How are they interacting with them? And you don't always get that based on what they're going to say, but watch them. Don't watch what people say. Don't listen to what people say. Watch what they do. That's going to tell you their true intentions. So I'm pretty happy with Arthur Smith and the progression of the Atlanta Falcons right now. It'd be nice to be 3-2, but they got a pretty good chance to even their record next week against the Miami Dolphins, and I think they've got a pretty good chance to do that. They might even be favored on the road. But if they can clean up those turnovers, get Calvin Ridley involved again and have him be the player they think he can be, then you got a pretty good weapon on offense. Defense is playing well enough to hold teams down. 3-3 heading into week 7 sounds pretty good for where this Falcons team is. Again, thanks everybody for being here. Again, hit that like, subscribe, and share button no matter where you are watching. And we'll be back again real soon. And my Broncos friends, I will see you tomorrow on Broncos for Breakfast. Thanks again. We'll see you next time.